Welcome to Interviews with Innocence, a podcast about spirituality, consciousness, and exploring the wisdom our children bring into this world. I believe that our very young children are our greatest teachers. After all, they're the masters of living in the present moment, bubbling in unconditional love, enjoying the messiness of life, and curious about the universe in all its dimensions. The pure essence that young children exhibit lives within all of us. My hope is that these interviews will help us discover, embrace, and connect with the sacred core of childhood that resides within each of our hearts. I am your host, Marla Hughes. Hello, today I am so excited to have Kelvin Chin on the show. Kelvin is a stress management and meditation expert. He is the executive director and founder of the Turning Within Meditation and Overcoming the Fear of Death Foundations. He is an internationally recognized meditation teacher featured in Business Insider, Newsweek, Kaiser Health News, and many more. At age 19, Kelvin learned to meditate, later studying personally with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who taught millions how to meditate effortlessly. Kelvin taught the first meditation courses at West Point and in the U.S. Army in Korea. Since then, he has continued to teach an even simpler technique he calls turning within, making it even easier to learn. Kelvin has shifted his focus away from his corporate career to helping others navigate life's often challenging waters, with the goal of improving the quality of life by offering better, more effective ways of thinking about life's difficult issues. Welcome to the program, Kelvin.
Yes, thank you, Marla. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. I think last time I saw you was at the IONS convention, where I thoroughly enjoyed your workshop and your different meditation sessions that you had. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's right, in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
Yes, King of Prussia. I'd never heard of that place before.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I don't even think I said in your intro that you're a lawyer. You went to Boston College.
Law school, yep.
Yeah, law school. Loved that school. So pretty. So how in the world did you get involved? I know you started meditating at 19. So tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so I started meditating when I was 19. And very early on, even before I became a teacher of meditation, I was giving lectures about it so I learned transcendental meditation, as you mentioned in the intro, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Yes.
I taught for his organization. And back in 1970, when I learned, there were very few TM or transcendental meditation teachers in the world. And so there were a handful of people at the time. Within a couple of few years, there were 1,000 or a couple thousand or whatever. Eventually, there were 15,000 in the worldwide at its peak in the late 70s. But so when I first learned, there were not that many people teaching. So they wanted help. So I was at Dartmouth College, and as an undergrad, I learned to meditate, and I was comfortable doing public speaking, obviously, because I was quickly giving talks to 25, 30, 50, 75, 100, 150 people at a time at Dartmouth. And within 2 years, 600 people had learned to meditate when I was at Dartmouth.
Wasn't TM really brought to North America by the Beatles?
Well, it was brought by Maharishi. It was popularized by the Beatles.
Yes.
But back to my spiritual journey in the mid-1970s, that's when I started remembering past life stuff. So in 1977, just spontaneously, I'd never read any books, never seen any movies or anything. I knew intellectually what reincarnation was, but I didn't know much about it at all. And then in the mid-1980s, that's when spontaneously things opened up in me somehow, and I started communicating with the other side. So angels, archangels, people who are dead, people who've never been incarnate in a physical form before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I had an NDE, near-death experience, almost drowned when I was 21 years old. So I'd already been meditating for 2 years by the time I had the NDE. So my NDE is unusual, not like a lot of the NDEs that you read about or see on YouTube video, because I had already been familiar with the other side in a sense, from meditating, being so comfortable with the expansiveness of my mind and so forth, and the experience of light and energy was just normal for me. So I didn't have the oh wow experience that a lot of people have who have NDEs for the first time. They've never experienced a world of light or a universe or whatever, an
Right.
air of light, and so et cetera, and incredible expansiveness and acceptance and all of that. So
Wow. So you had even gotten that through your
yeah,
meditative
I'd already gotten
techniques.
that experience through my meditation, never
Right.
having had an NDE. Then I had
Interesting.
an NDE, almost drowned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, I know you say that after you were, well, it says Kelvin spontaneously began to recall ancient memories from centuries ago. One major theme surfaced. No matter how eternal our minds seem to be, we tend to fall into the same recurring patterns of behavior over and over again. So that is just so true. And I think all of us know that. So I'd like
mm,
to talk a little bit about your turning within meditation. And also, I know you've worked with children, and I'd like to hear some stories if you have some,
sure.
and some ideas on how this kind of meditation can help our very young not fall into those, same patterns of behavior over and over again, to help them.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the patterns of behavior issue has to do with um, our emotions underlie our thinking. And so if we look at our emotional pattern, because you think about it, we think about stuff. Oh, I'm going to pick up a glass of water. That's a thought. We have an emotion about liking water. It's not a thought process. It's we have an emotion. We have a feeling about something. They're automatic. They're just kind of part of our default experience, emotions. And so my experience over the last 6,000 years that I've had these memories of my different lifetimes, 20 to 25 lifetimes or something over that period of time, is that I recognize certain emotional patterns that I've had over
Right.
that millennia. And I've worked consciously on them, because that's a choice that I've made, on how to unfold myself more fully without restrictions from some of those emotional patterns. Now, some of the emotional patterns are not restrictive. Some of them are just how I am. Like for example, I have an emotional need to understand things. That's part of my wiring. That's why I'm like a sponge. I'm like an information sponge. Like love learning about a lot of different stuff, but that's an emotional need I have. It makes me happy. There are other emotional patterns that I've had, like impatience and certain things like that I've had to work on, because they're very deeply ingrained in my emotional system, and therefore it affects my behavior, my actions and thoughts and so forth.
Right.
And so I've had to work on that over the millennia. So that's just like two different examples of something that's maybe good and helpful, and one that's maybe kind of restrictive. Um, so I think we all carry around this stuff with us.
Right.
And the point is, I suggest that we look at whether we have past life memories or not. It doesn't matter. We can look at our emotional patterns and how can we improve ourselves by looking at various emotional patterns that are more restrictive and constrictive, as opposed to the more expansive and helpful and emotional patterns. And what can we do to help adjust ourselves within ourselves about those? And so my meditation technique is a way that kind of helps unlock that stuff it's a non-therapy kind of approach, in other words, a non-content oriented approach. It's not like thinking positively or something like that. It's unfolding ourselves by turning within, allowing our mind to experience itself in this different way that we happen to be calling meditation, but in a way that's not focused, not directed, not manipulating the mind in any particular way, and therefore allowing the mind to expand its conscious capacity for mental experience. And so if we make the technique as easy and effortless as possible, which I give Maharishi credit for being that spiritual revolutionary that he has been, who has changed the thinking about meditation for millennia, in the way that he brought TM to the world, and then I've made it even easier. But that is the key, because that's the key to opening ourselves up more fully, more quickly, without constriction.
Right.
So that's the key, and I think that's one of the keys to unlock the door to our emotional patterns. Because if we have anxiety and stress, that's going to keep the door locked, And if we have our mind constricted and contracted and limited, that also keeps the door locked. So to open up and unlock the door, we need to expand our conscious capacity for experience and reduce our anxiety and fears, which is
Hmm.
what I'm doing in all of my work
Right.
now.
So when you're in a session, when you're teaching this, because I know sometimes when I like to take naps, and I actually look at
I
that.
love naps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
yeah.
And it's actually my time also to do, just really deep relaxation meditation. And sometimes I count, like 1,000, 2. And and then people say, you just want to keep your mind clear. And then if it goes to a thought, bring it back to nothing. So how do you teach it in that sense? What should a person be? Should they be trying to keep their mind completely clear?
No. So I teach the opposite of that,
Yes.
because to try to keep the mind completely clear, here's a
It's
fundamental
stressful.
principle. Yeah, well, it doesn't work, because look, I gave a lecture once. This is back in the old days, in the 80s, when you actually had to be face to face. There was no
Right.
internet. So I gave a lecture once in my living room. Or somebody's living room. Maybe I went over to somebody's house, and they had a bunch of neighbors over, and I was talking about meditation, and I talk about how I taught it. And in and I talked about the easy and the effortlessness of it, how you can't focus and control the mind, and you can't stop the mind from thinking. And it was like a 10 or 11-year-old young boy sitting there with the family, one of the families, and he raised his hands. He interrupted me. He said, "Yeah, I've tried to do that." He said, "I've tried to clear all the thoughts out of my mind, and when I get them all cleared out, I still have the thought. I'm still thinking no thoughts, which is a thought, which is exactly, it's like." And I said, "Yeah, what he said, exactly, you know,
Exactly.
exactly. That's my point, So because trying, here's a fundamental principle of every human mind. Doesn't matter where we live in the world. I teach in 41 countries now. It's just every human mind works the same way. Trying always creates more activity in the localized conscious area of the mind.
Mhm.
Trying, focus, effort, directing the mind, all of that falls under the umbrella of trying. Trying always creates more activity in the localized area of the mind. If I tell you right now, Marla, do not think of the word hippopotamus, boom, it's too late. You did it. You already thought it. You can't not think it. Now everybody's listening to this going, what's the thing about hippopotamus? Now they're thinking, why did you say hippopotamus? No, now you can't get out. Now I've infected people. They can't stop thinking about hippopotamus.
Right.
It's just that trying not to try is still trying. And so I never tell people to clear their mind. That's a misunderstanding. I think I've thought about this. I've been meditating for 50 years, as you said. So I've been teaching for 47 years. So I've thought a lot about this. I'm like, why are there so many meditation teachers out there still teaching about clearing the mind? And I think there's two reasons. And one is that people's minds are so busy and so active. People would love to have a quieter mind. And they think that, oh, my mind is quiet. I like it now. My mind is quiet. But the problem is that's a description of where they want to be. That's not a description of how to get there. I teach people how to get there.
Right.
You cannot quiet the mind by trying to quiet the mind, like we just said.
Mhm.
It always creates more activity. You cannot do that. So I get it that that's an objective. That's what people would like, a quieter mind, but you can't do it by quieting the mind.
Right.
That's the incorrect approach. And so I distill it down to this one sentence. For millennia, people have taken waking state rules and applied them to meditation. it makes no sense, but it's logical in a sense because they think, well, in starting a waking state, what I know focus control, so maybe I'll just try to not focus and try to focus in a different way. Well, instead, what I teach in my Turning Within meditation, I teach meditation rules. So, what are meditation rules? Not focusing, not directing your mind, not controlling the mind, not manipulating the mind, not trying to clear the mind. And so, and I teach a technique overlaid on top of that. And what does that do? That allows the mind to let go, get outside the 8-inch plastic bucket. And the side effect of that is the quieter mind or the more relaxed body, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But it's not about quieting the mind to get there.
Right.
Doesn't work.
Interesting.
Counterproductive.
And also something that I think is so valuable, because, we had talked in our conversation before that some people say you have to do it for 20 minutes or, it's no good.
Or an hour. Some
Or an
people.
hour.
Yeah.
And also in Turning Within, it's 2 times a day for 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's doable. It's doable for
Doable.
people.
I make it so flexible for
Yeah.
people. It's just, yeah.
I know, Kelvin, I commend you so much for this. It's just so beautiful that you are giving away actually meditation classes for those who are their immune systems are lower than they should
Yeah.
be, and
Compromise.
also
Yeah.
compromised. Thank you. And to the elderly,
Yeah.
and
Seniors. Yeah.
yes, and also something very, very close to my heart are veterans. And so
Yes.
do you have a story to tell us about someone that learned this meditation and how it kind of turned their lives around?
Oh yeah. So one of those folks, yeah. Well, somebody who's actually a senior and a veteran, and with post-traumatic stress from
Yes.
Steve Kelly. He's actually on my YouTube channel. People should subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just
Yeah.
find it by googling my name. But there's a couple of videos on there where he spoke about this, and I'll give you the short version. First of all, he's a Vietnam War era vet, so you can tell he's an older guy, like I am. And but he was in Iraq in the Iraq War, supervising. He was a manager of a fleet of jet fuel oil tanker trucks. They're basically bombs on wheels, and so to fuel the the jets, the fighter planes and so forth, and the bombers, whatever we had over there in Iraq, and so helicopters, etc. So he's over in Iraq in 2005, and in a truck, and he got blown up by an IED 40 feet
Oh,
away from him, and so he has PTSD and brain damage from it, and so forth and so on. But he has all kinds of stories, which he shares some on that YouTube video. But recently, he had 2 strokes.
mhm.
Like less than a month ago, he had 2 strokes. Because what is it? April? Yeah. So about a month ago, March 18th, he had a stroke, 2 strokes. And they didn't know, he and his wife didn't know he was having strokes at the time. All of a sudden, he couldn't understand what she was saying. And he said she was just talking gobbledygook to him in his mind. And they meditated. She showed him a picture of me on her laptop, and that's what triggered in his mind. Oh, that's what she's trying to say to me. Let's meditate. And so they meditated together, and he felt at peace. He remembered how to meditate right away because it's so simple, the technique.
Right.
He put 2 and 2 together when he saw my picture, and he meditated. And then he had enough cognitive ability after he meditated to understand that she wanted to take him to the hospital, that there was something wrong. And then they got him to the hospital. That's when he got assessed and so forth, found out he had 2 strokes. But he gets into some detail about his experience during it. But basically, he felt very, very, very peaceful. He felt like, he didn't know if he was going to die or live, but he
Right.
felt either way, he was okay.
So I know you've worked some with children. So
Yes.
how do you feel that the meditation, the tools, the skills it gives them to help them navigate in stressful times as they get
Yeah,
older?
I've taught a lot of kids. And so children, let's define children. So I teach
Okay.
people starting young people around 4 years old.
Yes.
And then, so 4 to 9 or ish, 9 to 10ish, depends on, we'll talk about each kid and the mom and the dad. But around 4 to 9, I teach them a technique where they don't do it with their eyes closed. And then around 9 or 10, they start doing what we do with our eyes closed. Because when they're young, they're just running around. It's not appropriate. But I give them something, and they don't get the same neurophysiologic deep relaxation stuff that happens. But it does balance their left and right and front and back brain waves and so forth. And it also keeps the kids more open. Because when they start going to school, the kids start shutting down,
Exactly.
contracting. And so this keeps them a little bit more open. And then when they're a little bit older and they're ready, 9, 10 years old, they do the eyes closed technique. But it really helps the kid. I taught my kids, both of them, when they were 4 years old.
Right.
And so my son just turned 32 years old yesterday. And my daughter is 25, as I mentioned. So, and they've been meditating, all this time. And the thing is, it really helps them manage their stress. That's the thing. And it's with the social media and everything, the fast pace and the social media pressure. And I actually have a page on my website for young folks. I call it my millennial page because I have so many in the 16 years old to 35-year-old age range that come to me because they're so stressed out.
Mhm.
And I teach them to meditate, and it just recalibrates their life. They just like, I can live now. I'm balanced. They don't have the pressure. They don't feel the pressure that they had before. So it really is a simple technique with very, very, very powerful effect.
If people want to find you and learn more about, your turning within meditation and your books, how would they find you?
So the best place, probably just go to turningwithin.org. All my websites are ORGs, nonprofits, or they can just Google my name, kelvinchin.org. That's
Great.
my more spiritual website. Turning Within is my meditation one, and overcomingthefearofdeath.org obviously is about my death and dying work, and my book is available on that website, or they can just go to Amazon. The other thing is they can just Google my name, and I'm like the first 3 pages in Google, Kelvin Chin.
Great. You're
And
pretty
then
easy to find.
I'm easy to find. Yeah, I'm hard. It's hard to hide. I cannot hide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no. If I want
your
to.
YouTube channel is
YouTube channel.
wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. And you be safe and have a wonderful day.
Good. Likewise. Great to
Okay.
be with you.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening in today. If you want to learn more about the show, you can find us at interviewswithinnocence.com and on Facebook or Instagram at Interviews with Innocence. Please write me a message, tell me what you liked, and let me know what else you would like to hear. I would love to hear from you. And if you liked what you heard, please leave us an iTunes rating and review. It helps other listeners find the show. Thank you.